Hello again. In this video we're going to discuss how to use properties of numbers to hopefully make calculations a little bit easier when you're not using a calculator. First of all, we've got a list of properties on the left hand side. Hopefully you've looked at these ahead of time. And on the right hand side we can see that we have the algebraic expressions of what they actually mean. Here's our first problem. On the left hand side we have the original problem, and we want to see how it changes to the right hand side. So the first thing you might notice here is the 9 divided by 3 becomes 3. Now that's really just substitution. Some people might say just plain old division, but for purposes of right now we're just going to call it substitution. Going from one step to the next, we'll notice that the 3 minus 3 becomes 0. Now you could call it subtraction, but again we're just going to call it substitution. Going down to the next row, you'll notice we multiplied the 24 and the 1 and got 24, and that's what's known as the multiplicative identity. For our next row, we have the 5 times 0 that gives us 0. Now the instructions said that that was called the multiplicative property of 0. I've got another name you might want to use for it. I like to call it the zero product rule. Then on the next step we go back and we take the 24 and subtract 8, which gives us 16. And again, that's just a form of substitution. And then we make the 16 and 0 add together to make 16. And that's not substitution because you're adding 0. There's something more descriptive. We're referring to that as the additive identity. So you're adding 0 to anything and getting the number back again. For our next set of instructions, we're going to look at the commutative and associative properties, and on the right hand side you see the algebraic representations of them. Hopefully you've looked at these ahead of time. For our first problem, we have a multiplication on the left, and we want to see how it changes to the right. You might notice that the 3 and the 2 change positions. Well, when you multiply, you can switch positions between those, and that's referred to as the commutative property, where you're actually switching things around, and in multiplication you are allowed to do that. On the next step, we notice they added grouping symbols, or parentheses in this case, around our multiplications, and that would be referred to as the associative property. You're allowed to group multiplications together any way you'd like. Next step, we just multiplied the 6 and 3, the 2 and 5, we got 18 and 10, and we're just going to refer to that as multiplying. You could call it substitution, but for now we're just going to call it multiplying. Then multiplying the 18 and 10 together to get the 180. Again, it's just plain old multiply. Now, as it turns out, multiplication is not the only operator that is commutative and associative. We also have an addition problem here at the bottom. If you look at the original problem, you might notice how the 18 or the 1.8 and the 2.5 can be switched around to make the calculation a little bit easier. And that's what they did on this level here, and we refer to that as the commutative property. In this case you can call it commutative property of addition, just like the last one was commutative property of multiplication. But the purpose of this is so that we can see that we can change the numbers around as long as we're using addition. On the next step you'll notice we added parentheses again, and just like before, that was the associative property. So multiplication and addition are both associative. And the purpose again of doing this is to help us try and get simpler calculations without a calculator. We add the 8.2 and the 1.8, we get 10. The 2.5 and 2.5, we get 5. And we're just going to call that addition. And then we add the 10 and the 5 to get 15. And once more, we're just going to call that addition.